Thank you to the Untangling Circularity podcast, our sponsor for the month of December. The Untangling Circularity podcast tackled unanswered circularity economy questions by addressing these questions head on and bringing in experts. Co-hosts Cynthia Power and Laura Novich give shape to the answers.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to ESG Decoded. I'm your host, Kaitlyn Allen, and I am so excited. As many of you know, circular fashion is one of my favorite topics. So I'm very, very excited to welcome Cynthia Power to the podcast today. Cynthia, thank you so much for being here.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Let me start with just your bio so folks can get a sense of your background. So Cynthia is a circular apparel expert with 16 years of experience in the fashion industry. She previously managed Eileen Fisher Renew for many years before working at tech resale startup Recurate. She recently started her own business, Molte Volte, which means many times in Italian, helping brands and retailers understand and navigate the circular landscape, including building and scaling resale and reuse programs. She is passionate about high-quality, durable goods that already exist and how we can prolong their useful lives. For those of us, our audience who are regular listeners, you also know that I share that passion with my startup Mended, as well as some of the work we do at Climbco in the fashion industry. So this is one of my favorite episodes that I'm recording this month. So excited to have you. So let's start with the brand perspective. So you've worked at a brand, of course, one of the major pioneers in this space, of course, but thinking about, generally speaking, the fashion industry, what are the top issues that these brands are thinking about today?
I think from my perspective, you have, sustainability as a function pretty well embedded into most brands. And I think that, I really hear them talking about it and trying to figure out their materials. I think that's, at least from where I sit and from my experience, that's where so much of the resources and footprints of a fashion company, they happen in both the, pulling materials from the land if you're using natural resources, or that polyester or other synthetic kind of creation, especially in the process from going from a fiber to a dyed material. There's a lot of energy and pollution and kind of waste that can happen there. So I think that companies are paying a lot of attention to that. I think they're also paying a lot of attention to who is making this, how are they being treated, how are they being paid, are we compliant? I think some companies, probably the best companies, have really close relationships with their supply chains. But other companies, probably most of them, they're separated by, multiple middlemen. And so they have to really try their hardest to make sure that at least on paper, everything checks out, that people are being treated the way they should be and paid the way they should be. And then I think related, but kind of separate, is this topic of environmental footprint, and just, what are all the places where there either, pollution risks, whether that's part of the dye process, how much water is being used, fresh water is being used. Are they, sending everything on an airplane versus, sea shipments? All of those types of questions around environment and like greenhouse gas emissions. I think that's where I see most companies paying attention to kind of those areas for ESG.
Mm-hmm. And then there's this kind of bigger topic. I remember years ago, people asked me, so what's the next thing after sustainability? And it's always this conversation about circularity. And what does that really mean? So this is your area of expertise. Tell us how you see circularity in the fashion industry.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting because I feel like it kind of depends where you sit and like what you believe, but I think some people would say circularity is part of sustainability. Other people would say sustainability is part of circularity. Now there's another buzzword in there, which is regenerative, and like where does that belong? And so in my vision of circularity, circularity is really all encompassing, and it's this idea that we can be, from creating our products, from the resources that we use to create our products being either recycled or recyclable and not harmful to the planet, all the way through, creating those products, getting them to our consumers. Then, I love, my specialty is really in the like, okay, once that product is with its first consumer, what happens to it? How many different things can happen to it, right? You love this too. Like, can it be repaired? Can it be resold? How many times can it be resold? How many times can it be repaired? Will it eventually be recycled? And can it eventually become something else through recycling? Or can it, in like a circular ideal world, it would either become something else or it would but go back into the earth. And so I think, that's kind of the ideal, is that circular is a circle where you're not wasting along the way. You're either reusing or putting natural resources back into the earth that will then become more new cotton, or just help regenerate basically new resources. So that's how I think about circular.
Mm-hmm. And that really it cuts across all of those topics, right? If the top 3 topics in your mind, ESG topics for fashion, are sort of materials, labor, and environmental footprint, circularity cuts across all of those, right?
Yes, it does. Yeah. I love thinking about it that way for sure. So I think, just to kind of hit each of those just a little bit, like when I think about materials and circular materials, either, when you're making new things, are you choosing materials that have already been recycled? And some, you'll see recycled content, recycled polyester, recycled cotton. You also have the opportunity to, if you're going to use a new resource, not a recycled resource, to make sure that it can be recycled when that product is, no longer useful and needs to kind of be broken down to be used again. That's super important. Then, in terms of labor, I would say maybe like thinking about it, how it's being constructed as well. It kind of crosses into this labor conversation where, is it being technically designed so that it can be disassembled easily, so that it can be repaired easily? That feels really important, in addition to this kind of labor element of, are we supporting the systems and the communities that are part of our, our circular system? I would also say I get excited about labor and circularity because I think there are a lot of jobs to be gained by going circular, different types of jobs that don't exist right now, or in very, very few numbers, of like, people that can be sorting, repairing, upcycling, all the different types of labor that we will need to actually create a circular system. Because I would say right now, maybe we like recycle 1%, or some tiny fraction of everything that's out there. So if you think about all of the infrastructure needs and all of the people that would be needed to really ramp that up, I get excited about that labor aspect. And then in terms of environmental footprint, I think, thinking about circular is also really powerful, of just even just thinking about everything that already exists and how can we use all of that more, so that we don't need to create as many new things with new virgin resources. I think, I was just, today I bought my daughter a pair of tap shoes that are used. And not only did I save money, but I'm not going straight to the company and saying, I need you to sell me another pair of brand new shoes that you used a bunch of new resources to make and probably flew from Asia. And like, sometimes you need the new thing, but whenever you can, I think you buy the used thing, and you really help decrease, I guess I help decrease my individual footprint. And if we all think like that, then I think we can really help decrease a lot of our environmental footprint kind of across communities.
And I'm the same way. I buy used first. every
Yes.
single instance possible.
Yeah. I feel like
It's
that's
kind
a
of
good
insane.
tagline that I haven't seen. I want to see buy used first everywhere.
Yeah, I love that. But so that's the sort of thing that can scare brands, right? So if we're talking to corporations, and we get, oh gosh, we're going to buy less things. So how do brands actually capitalize on this as an opportunity?
Yeah. I was just listening to a panel earlier. I won't share the brand name, although I bet they would be proud. They're excited about this. But there's a really well-known brand that makes really durable goods. It's Nudie Jeans. I mean, this is what they're doing. They're really excited about this, and they've had repair as part of their business forever. And they make a really high-quality denim, and they do free repair on it for life. And you can bring it back and get a discount. If you don't want it to be repaired, you just give your jeans back and you get a discount on another pair of jeans. But today they were talking about how this is so good for their business because they have so many customers that basically have decided, like, I'm not buying jeans from anybody else because this is such a solid program. And I'm so impressed with the free repairs and the discounts on new jeans that, like, I'm just not I don't want to go somewhere else where I can't maybe trust that, but also, like, I can't get a free repair on my jeans. And, like, we all wear jeans all the time. So I think that's a specific example, but I think that there are a lot of benefits to be gained by companies. And, I think even, so I could name a few of them. So first of all, I think that, like, yes, I understand when you say, this might scare companies, but I think if, I don't know, if you're a COO or a CEO or a CFO listening and you kind of take a step back from, like, the specific thing you might be thinking about or your specific company, you think, okay, like, I make this thing, I could sell it once or I could sell it 3 times. Which one makes more business sense? Like, that to me feels very clear and easy to answer. And so while it's a new idea, a new concept, and that can be a little bit, maybe scary, I think that the economics around circularity really make a lot of sense, especially the higher quality product you make. I think that for brands making really fast fashion or making a huge volume of kind of mediocre quality products, I can understand how that might feel a little scary. I still think there are ways you can participate in the circular economy, but I do think that the higher quality item you produce, the more business sense circularity will make for your business. So anyways, you can sell things multiple times. I talk about this all the time, but you can bring in new customers and delight your existing customers and reactivate, customers that haven't shopped with you in a while through programs like resale programs and repair programs. But I mean, especially with customer acquisition, I would say resale programs are extremely effective at bringing in new customers. And I think that, when we talk about what's important to companies, I know we were speaking specific to ESG, but if you kind of zoom out and think about, well, what's important to companies overall, I think customer acquisition and customer loyalty are, like that kind of subset of goals is going to be always close to the top of every company's priority list. And so I think doing things like resale, or I think repair, is a wonderful loyalty play that really helps your customer understand that you stand by your product and that they should be, coming to you and continuing to purchase from you, and that you're going to help them along the way. I think that goes a really long way with just individual people, like I was sharing about Nudie Jeans. So those are some of the kind of key or like top benefits, in addition to the sustainability benefits that you get from, keeping your products in use longer, really as long as possible. I could go on. We can come back to that. But I feel like those are some of the big ones.
I think that's incredibly helpful. And I know that, many of our listeners are at these corporations. They are the kind of internal change management person trying to do this. So those are all really compelling reasons, I think, to undertake different circularity programs. But how do they, when they take it to the CFO, right? So it's like, let's say I'm the sustainability person at one of these brands, and I haven't been able to get buy-in for my resale program. What do I take to my CFO to show them why this is a good business move?
Yep. Yep. So I think you can, for the CFO, who's like one of my main customers in my mind always is the CFO, and how can I make the CFO like smile, and how can I get their eyes to light up a little bit? And I actually think that circular programs are exciting in a different way than kind of pure sustainability programs, where I feel like sustainability in my mind is kind of doing the right thing no matter what. A lot of times I would say you don't necessarily get like very concrete direct benefits in terms of your customer or revenues. It's more like things that you should be doing because, you know, you're taxing the planet. Where with circular, and I don't know if you would agree with me on that, Kaitlyn, but with circularity, I feel like you have all of these kind of different business models and revenue models that I think are really interesting. And that's where I see the CFO get kind of interested. So, you know, I think bringing, first of all, I think you have to think about what's really right for your company, right? There are a few different ways to tackle this, but I do think, you know, for example, coming to your CFO and saying, look, you know, I've partnered with our head of marketing, and their goal is to acquire X number of new customers this year. And we can absolutely do that through, you know, starting our own resale program, whether we're doing peer-to-peer or take back resale. I think that's a really compelling way to do it. I think you can talk about the revenue. And again, for higher quality products, I think the margin is really there. And you can just talk about, look, we're not going to lose any money. It's only upside. We're going to make some money, and we're going to bring in these, you know, new customers. We're going to make our existing customers really happy, and we're going to bring back some customers that haven't shopped in a while. Like, that's really a slam dunk in my opinion. I think that the other thing, and I don't know if this is the CFO, but certainly the C-suite is kind of thinking about, all right, Europe just passed all of these extended producer responsibility laws, and maybe maybe you're already selling, millions and millions in Europe, so you actually need to start complying. You know, you're going to have to figure out how to comply with those. In which case, you're already thinking like, what are we going to do? Split our business practices and have it be, well, we do this for the US and we do this for Europe, maybe. But I think a lot of companies are going to realize that it's easier to just change everything just for the efficiency of it. And I think that it's, you know, to go and say, look, this happened in Europe. Some version of this is going to come to the US, or is going to come to California, then to New York. Then, you know, it's just going to keep spreading out, where like you're not going to be able to do business without really figuring out a lot of this. So get ahead of it, start understanding. I mean, I think that's very similar to like the ESG conversations and carbon footprint and, you know, water usage and chemicals and all that. It's like, you need to understand what are your risks are in your supply chain, and what your opportunities are, and what the lower lifts are and what the heavier lifts are. Like, so starting to have those conversations about circularity as well, and how that relates to extended producer responsibility, I think is another way to kind of get the C-suite to kind of listen, because I think, risk management is part of their job.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about Molte Volte. So you're also an entrepreneur, and I know we've gotten to the privilege of talking a lot about starting a business. So Molte Volte launched on the scene this year. We'd love to hear more about that and how you're working with your clients on these issues.
Well, thank you. And the privilege has been all mine, because you have been the most generous sharer of information and lifter up of me and my business. It has been like such a pleasure, honestly, just to like experience that. So thank you.
I did when I received it first, I will say, just because we do talk about entrepreneurship once in a while on this podcast. Right. And I was the recipient of a lot of that same type of generous support from people that had already been in my shoes. So it's part of the circular economy of
it is
lifting up other women. So
yes, you're doing a great job paying it forward.
Okay, so back to Molte Volte. Go ahead.
Yes. So with my business, I'm basically helping companies, brands, but also other companies within the kind of circular systems, which I could talk about, circular services. But if we focus on brands, really that whole everything that we've just been talking about, right, I think is a bit hard to navigate for brands right now, because it's, I actually like to draw a parallel with sustainability, where I feel like 10 years ago, I think a lot of companies were like, okay, sustainability, like, but how, and what is it, and what's most important, and who, like, what do we measure and all that. I feel like that's where we are with circularity. And so my intention with my business is to say, okay, I'll meet you where you are. I will hold your hand. I will help you figure out what makes sense for your business, what's the right program to start with, how can we expand it, how can we measure it, who should you work with, what vendor do you want to take it in-house, like help them answer all those questions, help them build it if they want that help. I'm also, like I said, working with kind of other circular companies or providers along the way, where I'm seeing, new software companies are coming to me and saying, hey, like, we built this thing and it enables a circular economy. What do you think? Or can you help us make it better? Or how should we be talking to brands about it? Or things like that. So I think because I've had a bit of this interesting, like, many years inside a well-respected brand and then working with a technology service provider, I have this kind of interesting kind of breadth of experience, which is why I left Eileen Fisher to go to Recurate, because I wanted that breadth. So yeah, I'm really here to kind of help brands navigate the circular economy as we figure out what it looks like, and who the kind of main players are, and how to measure it, and how to really build a program around it. That's my main offering.
Awesome. Well, and what the opportunity is, right? Because I think, so many of the folks that we talk to, whether Climeco, Mendit, your Molte Volte, we're all in this space of, there's a lot of folks that know what they want to achieve in the program or have this kind of vision, but it's that, how do we get from the vision and the idea of, yes, we're bought into this, but how the heck are we going to do it, right? And in some cases, it's that particular department, say, is bought in, but has to bring everybody else along. So how can we empower them, right? It makes some sense.
One of the things that I offer that seems to kind of click for a lot of companies is this landscape assessment of just, what is your product, and what makes sense for, your product in the circular economy, and what already exists in that space, or what are your competitors doing? And I think having that conversation with enough kind of senior leadership to help them all understand what the opportunities are is really important. I also think that while you were talking, I was thinking about, I think a lot of companies are thinking about, we want to have a resale program, or we want to start a repair program. And it's coming from like a good place of wanting to create something sustainable or circular, but they don't have the kind of in-depth understanding of what that means or what the opportunities are associated with it. And I was having a conversation with a high quality shoe company the other day, and we were talking about the opportunities, and I realized, I asked them some questions, and I realized, you own your entire supply chain. Your opportunity for repair and like really holding this whole thing in-house is amazing. And before you go and, talk to 12 vendors about how they could do it for you, like, you should really have a conversation about if you could do this internally. And, I think, going back to that labor conversation, it's like, warehouse employees, they already do most of what you need to have a resale program. You just need to help them, you need to set up a little photo studio maybe, or like an extra computer desk for somebody that's working to like upload the resale listings or something, and you'll be off to the races. And they know your product better than anybody. They can inspect it better than anybody. So I think just those types of opportunities, I also get really excited because maybe there is like an inkling of interest from them. And I feel like I help them kind of like, go like, oh, this could be bigger, or this could be more exciting, or, better for our company.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I think always the reaction, like you said, it's the C-suite's job to look at risk. And so sometimes these things pop up as initially seeming like a risk, but there's such massive opportunity, especially I think as we necessarily, I mean, this isn't going to be an option, right? As we necessarily move from the take, make, dispose model to a circular model. It's a necessary transition that's going to happen because we do live on a finite planet with finite resources, right? So
even though we don't act like it.
Yeah, we don't act like it, right? But we do. And so I think making that transition and seeing it as this opportunity, right? Like you said, what can you do? How can it help customer loyalty? How can it help brand loyalty? What is all that upside that you're talking about can get folks more excited about it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Can I mention one other risk? As you were talking, actually, I was thinking, a lot of companies they've decided they're going to abstain from participating specifically in resale. And I think the risk there is that you have existing and new to brand customers that are out there shopping your used products on all the marketplaces. They're not coming to you. And I think, maybe the most exclusive brands in the world, like, they're abstaining for some reasons, but let's say there's 5 of those brands, but there's 100 other brands that are abstaining for, I don't know why. I think there's a big risk there that if you don't kind of get into the game and start playing and figuring out what works for you, what works for your customer, what works for your product, you're going to be kind of left in the dust a little bit. And I think that's a risk as well.
I don't think we need to say anything else. We can just end the episode right there. Perfect. Well, for all of our listeners who are dealing with this exact issue internally, obviously we'll include Molte Volte's links and Cynthia's information in the podcast notes. You've just been an incredible resource for me and for, I know, a lot of people and a lot of brands navigating this. So we're really grateful that you took the time today to come on and talk a little bit more about this subject in depth.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I love talking with you anytime, Kaitlyn. I'll text you later.
All right. Well, thanks so much to our audience, and we will see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks again to this month's sponsor, the Untangling Circularity Podcast. Listen to new episodes at multivolte.com/podcast.